7 yesterday, you can now see that we're just working with a header and a main content picture window. And I also included here, just for the information, but I think that should be clear, and we're using that already. For the picture change in the picture windows, we use the system function activate screen and screen window. That's what we also did here in the should I record this as well?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Okay. So we also used here in the demo project, when we switch to the HTML Professional, our start screen is actually the screen called start. So when I open the start screen, I can now see that we have a picture window, which is called window underline header, and it includes the screen header, and we have a main content picture window, which is called window underline content, and actually just is linked to the screen overview. I also included a picture window, which is then going to be our modal pop-up, similar to the one yesterday as well, which is the settings pop-up, and when we switch to the header picture window and click on the green arrow for the displayed screen, we get a jump into the actual screen. And there we find again, when we click on, for example, the bottling button, and we go to events, we see here that the system function activate screen and screen window is used, where we actually define the screen name we are in right now, which is the start screen, because the start screen contains the screen window underline content, and we want to change in the new screen, which is the bottling screen. So we just type in the parameters for screen name, screen window, and new screen name where we want to switch to. This is a system function. You can also use the read function for the system function, which is also activate screen in screen window, and you just type in the parameters there. But you can also access the screens of the HTML runtime object as well. Okay, this regarding the actual setup of the screens. So we just changed the screens in our picture window main content. Okay. Then when we go further, what we actually want to include in our project, in the demo project, is a tag info, so a detailed view screen window, which appears as soon as we click on our tag. So what you do have in your project, when we switch to TLA folder again, and we switch to our bottling screen, we have in our library under master copies now, because it's not a type, the screens have to be or can only be master copies. So we switch to our efficient engineering folder, and we see a movable pop-up. Oh no, it's not. One moment. Yeah, UDT and screen. That's the folder I was looking for, UDT and screen, and this one includes the screen window. So if you just drag and drop it in here, you have the already prepared screen window on the screen in order to see the details of the tank. Let's have a further look or a closer look in the screen window configuration itself. When we go to the properties of the screen window, we see here that already the screen which should be displayed is called tank underline info. When we jump to that screen with a green arrow, it brings us to the screen itself. And for the two I/O fields, for the one right next to color, we actually want to see the color which is in the tank, and content in liters is the actual fill level of the tank itself. What we can see here is that there are no tags configured so far. So we work the same, we do the same thing as yesterday, what I did in WinCC 7.5. We define our structure elements here. So we know we have a tank UDT, which consists the elements content and color. And now we just link the elements to or in the screen, which is then for color dot color. And be careful, the display format is a string because it's gonna the value is gonna be blue, red, or green, and the content in liter is then dot content, and it's a decimal value. So that's okay. This is all we have to do so far. So we save. And we go back to the bottling screen. So we did configure the structure elements for the I/O field. We do have a screen window placed in the bottling process. What we now need to do, or what's still missing, is the event when we actually want to trigger the or activate the screen window when we click on each of the tanks. So we start with the first one, which is my red tank, and I go to events, and I want to add a UV script here. You can just delete the comments in there. And in order to access the items on the screen, we work with the screen items object here. So screen item, screen items, and now we actually want to access a certain item on the screen, which is our screen window. So we say dot, and then our IntelliSense appears, and we want to access the specific item, which is then here, when we click on the list of objects, which is then our picture window. And I actually forgot what the name is, but it's here, window info. So we access now our item window info, which is this screen window here. And we want to set it on visible. So we access the property visible. And first of all, we set it to false. So we assure the item is not visible in the beginning. And then we set the parameters first and set the screen window on visible again. So in that case, the one thing we want to forward to the screen window is the tag graphics. So we start in the same way again, screen items, dot item, choose the same window info, and we access now the property of the screen window, which is tag graphics. And the IntelliSense again shows us the properties or all the properties of the screen window. One of them, what we want to access is tag graphics, and now we want to write the tag graphics into the screen window property. So in the case of the red tag, we switch to our UDT, which we've just included before, in our tag info tag table. And for tag red, we do have the color and content, and we are just interested in the tag graphics itself, which is actually the whole tag underline details dot tag underline red. And I'm just going to copy that, go back into my screen, and my tag graphics is now the tag graphics of the red tag. And I'm just going to copy the first line in order to put the screen window on visible. And that's actually all I do. In the hands-on, you also find a line with not tag graphics, but screen name. So you can also, of course, change the screen in the screen window during runtime. But in that case, we just use the tag info screen. So I can actually just, for this object, for the screen object, just leave this as a static value, because it's always going to be the same screen, which is displayed. So you don't need to change it. And that's actually all I have to do. So these are the 3 lines of scripts I need to use in order to forward or link the tag graphics to the screen window. I'm going to save. And then I just want to see, instead of rolling it out to all the 3 tags, I just want to see first if it actually works. So I'm just restarting my runtime. Switch to the bottling screen. And then I click on my tag red. And I can see screen window is visible now. It includes the string of my color, which is shown in the tag. And I can see the content of my tag. And of course, I can also, or should be able, to change the value in here. This one here doesn't move because I haven't connected it in the faceplate, but I see it's connected to the tag because this value changes, and as soon as I change the value here, because the I/O field is connected to the same tag, it also changes again. I can also close the screen window, and when I click on the tag again, the pop-up appears again. To show you how I close the window, it's actually pretty simple, but I just want to show that as well. So what we do here is, this is just setting operation lock in here, and couldn't make that to false because in previous trainings I did use the set operation lock here as well, but I can actually comment that out. But in this case, what I use here is just this line of code, which actually starts with item. So when I click on the X button, that is my item. Dot parent is the screen. Dot parent is the screen window itself, where the screen is located in. And I access the property visible and set it to false in order to close the picture window. That's all I do. Okay. Then the last thing I would have to do, go back to the bottling screen. Actually, because I'm lazy, I just copy it and roll it out for every tank and just place in here, because I know the only thing that changes for the UDT is the color. I'm going to do the same thing for the last tank as well. And this one is the blue one. And that's actually your next hands-on. So the result should be here. And then restart the runtime. And switching to bottling. When I click on red, it shows me the red information. When I click on green, it shows me green. And when I click on, oops, did I not change it? Should show me, oh, I didn't, let's see. Of course, last tank then should show me the blue variable. And that's your next hands-on. And like I said, here I also included the script for screen name. You can use it, but in our case, in our use case, you don't change the screen. It's always tank underline info, so there's no need to actually write in the string here. Okay, your turn. Yeah. What? Oh. I'm not an expert in recording, I'm sorry.
One question?
Yes.
Can you open your this by is that good? Can we do like have the tooltip here? To when we point out the thing, the point.
Okay, what it actually is.
Yeah, it will show us some content like database.
Okay. Well, I did, bless you. I just didn't, it's a demo project, so I didn't include everything, but yeah, that would be something which you can include here. I'm just gonna,
It's possible. It's possible.
it should be possible, right?
Because no one can remember all the things.
Oh, yeah. How can,
Move the cursor on
yeah,
point and we see
but I
that
think
one.
it should be possible. That's just fun, let me find out where, yeah, it should be possible.
System is called tooltip.
Yeah, we have that in WinCC 7, but I've never tried it to do it in professional. Let me just
Tức là bây giờ bình thường nhé, mình để các em mình cho tất cả đúng không? Nhưng mà ví dụ như người bạn này người ta đâu có nhìn thấy chẳng may có người khác người ta đến, ta chưa biết đến lúc đấy là ý nghĩa gì luôn. Nghe gì đây đã, ok, bữa này chúng ta là đây luôn. Cái đấy gọi là tooltip. Chỉ biết sử dụng có nữa. Cái tooltip cái này có nữa. Chỗ này
thì lúc này nó vẫn thích vào tooltip
property của chính lúc đấy luôn. Cái graphic object thì
property itself, okay, because I was looking for if it's named in the text. Because here I do, but I just do have the.
Nhiều lắm, chỉ so với tổ nước một tờ bay xem nó thì
đấy là cái tắc nước tuyết rồi.
It would have surprised me if it would have been 7.2. Okay, I'm gonna save the video really quick. Or the recording.
You open the YouTube link. And general stuff repeat.
You can also put that blank.
Yes, black.
Well, I
Because we have it not repeat. But if you don't want to run by DB, you can type in here.
Yep. If you don't want to do it over script, if it's always the same one, you can just type it in here.
So we have a two-way.
Well, this one over the scripted style is dynamic track graphics, so you actually change the track graphics during runtime. In the case you want to use a static one, it's always the same one.
nhưng mà cái sợ bên ngoài thì
So it's always, it's also fine.
Bây giờ ví dụ như chị để như này đúng không? Như này như sau khi mình trước kia thì sẽ loát lại đúng không? Đó là cái này là các cái của DB tăng kia.
Giả sử bây giờ là trên cái WinCC ở property nó có config nhưng mà ở trong code mình có config nhưng mà config khác chẳng hạn thì nó là cái nào sẽ nhận được.
quan trọng là event nào dùng trước rồi release
Khi nó thuộc tính hết rồi thì
Nó là không thể config rồi, lúc nào cũng vậy.
đúng là nó là thế.
So can we try when you tap prefix in the config and we type in here, and the other one when we click on the example the green tank, what happens?
It changes.
It changes.
Yep. So if
em kiểu này một lần thì mình chỉ có một đối tượng thôi nhưng mà đối tượng khác là nó
just gonna overwrite. It's just gonna overwrite the tag graphics in here. So if I go to green, it's now still pretty cool. So it actually puts, it rewrites the value of the tag graphics. So it's not like if this here is filled, that it's not, it can also be used by the background. Like it can also be write something else.
Yeah.
cái này sự là các bạn trước nên mình truyền nhiều đối tượng tương đối là chỉ cái đầu tiên cái sau là không truyền đúng không? Thì cái dần dần bây giờ là ok rồi.
Vì sao là code cái này
Không là dùng như này trực tiếp với tắt prefix này, không dùng như mà dùng như này để truyền động cơ lấy lại động cơ chỉ là đầu tiên sau truyền.
cái dùng script thì ok thôi.
Ví dụ ok.
Thế là được chất được lợi là cái tương tự như này em có đi luôn. Đấy, được chất được lợi là cái tương tự như này em có đi. Đúng rồi, cái phát triển là kêu là nó dùng cái tự nhiên. Nhưng nó không kiểu basic như này. Cái này là chỉ basic.
juga pengen bantu itu sehingga sebelum
Thì mở thành một cụ screen nhé.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going with the next topic, which is modal pop-ups. So we already had that yesterday when I was mentioning when you do have the case that we want to have a pop-up coming up on the screen, but the background should not be operatable. We talk about modal pop-ups. So we block the background off the screen. We also do have an example for that in the demo project as well, and we always use the script set operation box. Like I showed you yesterday in the 7.5 demo project, when we switch to our start screen in the project, which is called start, then we find here our settings picture window, which is called window underline close RT, and it includes the screen settings. When we switch to the settings screen, it looks like this, and we have, for example, a button which ends or stops the runtime, which uses the system function stop runtime, and with the X button we want to exit the model pop-up again. We activate the pop-up with, and we go one time with our setting button in the header. So if I click on it, this pop-up here appears, but the background is still operatable, so I can still do things in the background. So what is missing? The set operation log itself. So we go in the engineering and go into our header and our header screen, and there we find the button for the settings, and we open up the events, and it does already have a click event, but the only thing what the script does is it puts the window underline close RT, so the screen window on visible. So what is missing is actually the exact script here. So we start, and I'm just going to copy this part of the script because we want to access the header picture window for the set operation log and the main content window. So in this case, I'm just going to actually delete this because it's not the same picture window here. So again, HMI runtime dot screens, we're still in the start screens, and we want to access the object on the screen, which is actually content and header, because we want those two picture windows not to be operatable during runtime. So we start with the header, and we put or use the set operation block, and now here we find it in the IntelliSense as well. And we have to set the two parameters. The first one is disable or enable the set operation lock. In this case, we want to enable this set operation lock, and we put the level of transparency. You can use another one instead of 20. I'm just going to put 50 in there, and we do the same thing in the next line for our window underlined content. You set operation lock again, setting it to true, and setting the same transparency level. That's actually all we have to do. So compiling, saving, and in runtime, if we would now hit the button on settings, we see nothing operatable in the background anymore. But the problem, what we do have now is if we click on the X button, we don't reset the set operation lock. So I am actually stuck in runtime, and I can't do anything anymore. So of course I need to consider when closing the picture window again, I should disable the set operation lock again. So I go back, and I'm just gonna introduce the same thing here with my set operation lock, but this time again I want to disable the set operation lock. That's why I used for the first parameter, it's now false, so it's a logic parameter I need to set, and my transparency level is 0. And the same thing for my window content. And that's all I need to do. So I see now in runtime, and I restart my runtime. When I click on settings, set operation lock is set, and I don't want to shut down the runtime. Okay, that was the same thing as yesterday. So I'm gonna restart the simulation, but then it's resetting again. One actually hint what I put in here as well is for the pop-up screen window, please always activate always in foreground, that the pop-up window is always located in the foreground. And that's all we need to do. So that actually is the next hands-on. And I'm just gonna keep this slide because here is the script which we need to use. And it still shows it, but it's just sometimes it happens that it doesn't get displayed in the foreground. So to be sure, because it would pretty much suck if it's the background and the set operations of the set in here. So you should, to be sure that it's like showing in the front, I would always take the box.
Nó cũng được, nhưng mà để tất cả các nhánh nó sẽ khi nó xuất hiện thì nó sẽ đứng trước tất cả các thằng khác.
Is it light or do you have to go to them?
Oh, yes.
No way, no. Oh, that's just one, like every day she's one light?
You want to take preset
You know how much miles I need to get back to Germany? That's like something like that, right? Like to get it for free. Like I'm never gonna achieve that. That's just not gonna happen.
you should do start most of 10 a year.
I should what?
Have this most of 10 a year.
Yeah,
So you
sure.
can have more.
If you pay that. Yeah.
That's what I would like that. You could get several. So it depends on what happens first. More workshop or more discounts.
The funny thing is, I got the silver frequent travel card for Lufthansa because I use Lufthansa in Germany. And then right at the moment I got the card, I flew to Singapore and there's no miles anymore. Like 3 years. But it's Chris back. So it's a different kind of points. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. Good. Yeah. Sucks. When I fly to Germany too, I can't see if I can accommodate. Well, I can say it's not that I'm allowed to go back to either. I just want to stay.
So can you search what's the jumping into this project and where it's doing something else? So can you search yeah, for example, I know that we
Oh, yeah. That's what I, not the green one, that one.
in Japanese, how we can
Oh, you see
navigate
it, you see it up here? Yeah. Or you,
at this stage.
Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a lot of trends that the structure of no, it's just that I think I have that in Jakarta. And actually, I left the hotel, I think at like 5, and it took me I think it was 1 hour and I was at the gate. And I never had it before. So I feel like I'm going to take that kind of flight every time I go. Because you just go and start in the traffic. And I was at the gate. Not at the airport, at the gate. Which is pretty good. Okay, so the last topic for the efficient engineering block is, okay, I do have a pop-up, but it's just located on a static position in the screen, and I cannot move it. So it's located here, but I cannot like move it around somewhere on the screen. How can I do that? I also implemented or put an example for that in the demo project. Oh. So for, yeah, screen window movable, what you can find in your library again is a folder which is called movable pop-up. And there you can find two different things. One is I can move, and one is move object, which is a tag table. What we actually do for moving the object is we use a Windows script, Windows API, which I'm not going to describe in detail because it's just yeah, a script. I can show you how it looks like, but I'm not going to explain it in detail. So when we switch to our screen, our settings screen again, jumping in there with the green arrow down here in the properties, opens up our screen, and we just place the icon move, which we can find in the library, we just drag and drop it in the screen, maybe in the corner, in the left corner, or whatever, wherever you want to place it. And when we actually go to the events, we can see that it uses or it's linked to some scripts in here, some text. What you can also see in here to discuss the topic for server graphics or tech graphics again, you can also see the @NOTP in here. So when I want to get access to a tag in the HMI tags, which is not a structure element, I can use the no tag graphics, and I get the access to the general tags in the project. So I actually just write into those tags, and therefore I need the move object tag table, which I am going to place in the model pop-up group in my HMI tags. So I'm just going to drag and drop it to the model pop-up. And then when I open this tag table, I can see 4 internal tags, which are actually just for the use of calculating the X and Y position on the screen. Okay. So I save my screen. And what I also have to do is, when I go to my start screen, where my pop-up is located at, I have to activate in the properties my border. So the frame of the window, because this is necessary to actually calculate the X and Y position. I'm going to save. And I'm going to restart the runtime for actually the graphics module. And then I now click on my head over. I can actually move it around on the screen. Okay. I also described it in, I actually see something. I actually don't need the frame. Yeah, okay.
question. I think in WinCC standard is can movable easily with
With what?
the picture window.
Yes.
With the picture window, we can easily move the location on the screen. During runtime.
15 em cũng dùng được mà. Đâu, 15 em vẫn dùng suốt mà.
Yeah, which is like comparison. It's like an operation.
Có cái game mà nó rất là mỏng anh cái đấy có gì phải đâu. Thì em biết ở ngoài. Đấy, ngoài đây.
And if not, you can actually use the same script.
Máy này rút sạc có chạy được không? Máy rút sạc chạy được không?
You can move it, I'm pretty sure you can activate the frame. And when you activate the order, you should be able to move it without the script. Same thing here.
Yeah.
So if you, without using the script, you can also activate the border and the setting here, border and movable. And then you don't need to use a script, you can just move it around. That's 7.5. And it should be the same thing in TIA. Then you, yeah. Okay, it moves different. Okay. But exactly the same thing. You can also place it somewhere else.
Nhưng mà cái này thì có cái là
cái border cái quyền đó. Border là nó nhỏ.
Border and
Border rất là mỏng.
it just looks fancy when you use it.
People have script là như là
As soon as you click the symbol, the icon, then the script is running. That's what I'm saying. And that was actually the last thing. Yes. Okay. I think, yeah. Next topic is for diet. So I would start with basic slides regarding Kodaic. And just, yeah, basically cover the topics and the introduction, because it includes a configuration on CPU and HMI side. Of course, we will discuss PLC configuration and HMI configuration. We will not do the get alarm topic because I don't think we can cover that in the time that we want to do some work today still. So first of all, what is the advantage of using Kodaic? Of course, it's regarding diagnostic management, so get or detect the error as soon as possible when the failure appears. And reduction of production downtime. So reduce the downtime of the machine in finding the error or the failure as soon as possible. Okay. I did a little comparison regarding different setups. So for example, we have the one case, we have a semantic PLC, and we have a third-party HMI. In that case, the main message is that we have to create the alarms, the discrete alarms, or whatever alarm messages are used manually on the third-party device, because we cannot map it to a third-party HMI. So manual configuration here. And also in the runtime, the timestamping has to be synchronized manually. Then we go one step further and we say, okay, we have a semantic PLC and we have a semantic HMI. It looks a little bit better because we can actually map messages to the semantic HMI already, and we do have one central timestamping from the PLC. We also have the possibility to get the diagnostics from the PLC, including the web server, or on a 1500 the display as well. Maybe the last step, which now includes the ProDiag, is we are still talking about semantic PLC and semantic HMI. In this case, please be aware, in order to use ProDiag, it has to be a 1500 PLC, and it has to be a TIA portal version 14 or higher, because with the version 14, ProDiag was introduced. So what we do have here is that because we do the whole alarm management in the PLC itself, we get the precise timestamp of the PLC, of course, for the message. That's, in my point of view, the most or the biggest advantage. And one of the biggest advantages is that when we generate or configure everything on the PLC side, which you will see is pretty easy and pretty fast to do, the only thing what we have to do on the HMI side is including the controls on the HMI screen and nothing more. Okay. Switching to the next slide, when we talk about advantages or highlights, one other big highlight is that when you do the whole alarm configuration, you do it on your engineering. You download the engineering to the PLC, and the visualization system is actually just getting the alarms from the PLC itself. So if you do changes to any alarm messages during the runtime, it does not affect your runtime because you don't have to restart the runtime. You just download to the PLC again, and the HMI gets the alarms right away. So you don't have any downtime or switching or whatever synchronization of your HMI. So that makes it much more easier, and you reduce the downtime as well here. Okay. Yes, when we talk about ProDiag, we always talk about so-called supervisions, because we supervise either one specific tag or one specific input of your FD interface or of your data block. It is also supported in all the languages, and there's really no scripting know-how required regarding the languages of your function block programming and other scripting as well. So it's actually just typing in the parameters like in a configuration wizard. It's not more to do. Okay. On the HMI side, it's pretty simple. The only thing you see which is different is you get more controls. So you not just have the alarm control where you can see all the alarms on your machine. You actually get the so-called S7 graph overview control, which is then for, if you use S7 graph, it shows you information of your S7 graph function block. The ProDiag overview control, which is here, where you can actually see if there is an error or failure appearing right now, and the PLC code viewer control, which you see down here, which shows you the exact place in the function block, which parameters or which operands are affected by the failure.
With this one, we will look at the network.
And when you see this, you can also use the jump into the TIA total for what I talked about earlier this day, which is now also available for advanced. Yes. Some slides regarding licensing. That's actually, I'm just going to switch to this slide because that's more clear. You have licenses for the number of supervisions you generate on your PLC. So you have on this side your PLC licensing, and with every client which is accessing the supervisions, you have to have one license key. The difference between the keys is here. One license key for the PLC includes 250 supervisions. By the way, I think 25 supervisions are already included in the basic installation. And then you just multiply the keys. So if you have 2 keys, or I think it goes here, I think it goes on the slide, maybe not. So you just multiply the keys. So 1 key is 250 supervisions, 2 keys is 500 supervisions, and so on. Okay. PLC engineer. There you go. That's what it is. So 25 supervisions included without license, and then 250, 500, so you multiply it by the number of keys you have. And one requirement is, like I said before, version 14. And the other requirement is that your 1500 has at least firmware version 2.0. And the configuration of the licensing is done in the PLC configuration itself. Okay. Creating a new product supervision is basically just doing a right click on the tag you want to supervise or on the interface of your FB, and you just select add new supervision, and then you see here the symbol is attached to the tag or the parameter, which tells you, okay, this input is supervised, and you can also create several numbers of supervisions on the same input. So it's not just limited to one supervision per input, you can also add more. What kind of supervisions do we have? Operand supervision, interlock, action, reaction, position. And we also have extended supervisions, which then just generate an extra message or an extra error message, which includes an error ID, for example. What does it mean? I guess operand and interlock and position is basically clear. What I want to focus on is what is an action and when is the failure generated. So we do have, for example, a conveyor, the sensor start is hit, and we get to the sensor stop. So we have one event, which is sensor start, and another one, which is sensor stop. And there's no error here, so that is smooth run. But what happens when an error is activated? So for an action, for example, I get stuck here. So the sensor start is actually the supervised input here. And I generate a product alarm as soon as this sensor start doesn't give a negative flag after a specific time. So the configuration itself is pretty simple. The supervised parameter, like I said, is sensor start. We do have a startup time of 1 second, and the action which is triggered is motor on. Okay. And of course, when sensor start is still active, after 1 second, the motor on is switched to false. Reaction. So what we basically do is we have sensor start and we do count the time until sensor stop is hit. So we also cover the case when the object is stuck in between those two sensors. So we do supervise the sensor stop in that case, so the end position, and the action is again motor on. So if the sensor stop is not reached within 5 seconds, we trigger a false here, or an error message. Okay. Position, I guess that's clear. As soon as the sensor is still active, the motor is still off. The other way is when sensor is false, motor is on. I guess interlock is clear, releasing an interlock. So if I do have here a function block, and I do have one parameter here, which is in that case called release, so releasing the function here. I have one pre-requirement here, which is the global release, which has to be active in order that the precondition for this release is fulfilled. Okay. So that one use case would be, for example, if I'm in manual, if the machine is triggered to manual, how do you say that? Manual operation, it cannot be an automatic operation. That's the use case for interlock. That should be clear. Okay. This is actually the configuration window of a supervision, which you configure for one tag. So you do have the configuration in your properties here, and you choose the type of supervision as the first thing in your configuration, which is then triggered to a signal which is either false or true. You can also configure a time delay. It can have up to three different conditions or triggers, which then need to be configured for the condition trigger itself. You can assign a category, which is then the category of your alarm text message, like in WinCC, error, warning, information, or the basic one. Category 5 up to category 8 is then user defined, so you can also add more categories to it. Also, there can be up to 8 subcategories, which can be configured in the common data van, and you have to have a ProDiag FB, which basically does all the error handling. So it does include also the error bit here, which is then, like I said, handling the errors here. The last thing is then down here, and I cannot see it back here, but I will see it, I will show it like that too. Down here, the last configuration is the actual alarm text. The alarm text itself is actually configured in the central supervision settings, so you can see here it's under common data. And you can add different text field blocks, so you don't have to type it in manually. You can just choose the blocks you want to see in the alarm text, and then just drag and drop it over there. We just differentiate here between the basic supervisions, which are again interlock, operand, reaction, action, and position. And then we have the other ones which are the extended supervisions, like operand supervision with an error message, or operand supervision with a text message. So basically, it's an operand supervision, which then triggers an error message or text message. That should be clear. Okay, and then, like I said, drag and drop into your alarm text, or you can also add additional alarm texts as well. Okay. Categories. Yes, you can have up to 8 categories, and like I said before, default ones are error, warning, and information, and you can always change the names and conditions of the other 5 categories like you want to. Those categories are actually then the same which are shown in the product overview control here. So you see here arrow warning information. The EQ is just the one which I added to the demo project here, which is arrow quit. And yeah, those are shown in the first row of the product overview, and down underneath it there's the type, so operand, interlock, reaction, action, position, and I think that's a message. I'm not sure. I think that's a message, yeah. This is how the alarm text then actually looks like. Whatever text field blocks you added in the configuration, and that's actually in the alarm window, alarm control. Okay. The ProDiag function block itself just includes every single supervision you have configured in the project. So it's not like the function block structure we know before in the other block languages. It's really just a list within the configuration, nothing more. You can also export and import Excel files or an Excel format, also possible. Structure of the ProDiag instance data block, which actually does the error handling there, also gives out the state of the supervisions, which are then linked to WinCC again. So that actually is the linking between the PLC and the HMI here. So we need to consider to link those then in the HMI. ProDiag overview editor, yeah, there's not much to say. It's actually the same, basically the same thing like in the ProDiag FB itself, but this is actually the global view. So if you have more ProDiag FBs, you will see everything in here. All of them. Okay. Yes, I'm going to switch to my again. Oh, now I have to start recording again. Or no?
Yes. This one is going both.
What?
I'm just
gonna full screen. Okay. Start. Okay, so I'm just gonna close everything again because it's a new topic. And okay. Okay. All right, let's start from the beginning. I'm going to start with the general settings of ProDiag. So you can find the general settings of ProDiag in your common data under supervision settings. I open this one up, and that's actually basically the same thing as in the screenshots as in the slides. So we start with the general here, and you can start with categories, which actually show everything in here up to category 8. What you can do here as well is you can decide which alarm class, so no acknowledgement or acknowledgement. And you can activate your different categories however you want them in the project. Also, subcategories can be added. And you can also define or decide which types of supervisions should be available in my configuration for the supervisions. Alarm texts, I also include a screenshot for that. This actually includes all the text field blocks I was talking about earlier. So you can drag and drop, for example, in your alarm text. Oh, it's already in there? Oh, this one. Oh yeah. Which one is not in the subcategory? Okay, so you can add and you can delete them again, same for additional text as well. So just drag and drop. Okay. Same for the different supervision types. So those can be different. Okay. What do we have in the project already when we switch to the PLC? What we see in the PLC is, first of all, I'm going to start with device configuration to show you where you have to do the configuration for ProDiag in here. So down here in the runtime licenses properties, like what you do for OPC-UA as well as for Energy Suite, you also do have one property which is called ProDiag, where you actually choose the license you have. And that's actually everything you need to do. Firmware version has to be, like I said, at least 2.0. In my case, or in this case in the project, we use 2.5. So that's okay. And for the program blocks, you do have a folder which is called ProDiag in there. So we open up this one, and we do have some stuff in here. For example, we have a actual graph FBs in here too, volume graph and coloration graph. To see something in the S7 graph overview, we do have the for the PLC code viewer, we do have one motor control FB to see something or to see a structure or a network in the PLC code viewer. Yeah, not much logic in here, so don't expect that much. And the most important thing is here the default supervision FB. We can also create a second supervision FB. When you select function block and you go to language, you can actually see here that we can also choose a ProDiag language, which actually is then just a ProDiag FB. How this function block looks like, just going to open up one. That's actually the structure of the supervision FB, or ProDiag FB. So what we see here, because we have already some thing included in the demo project, we do have one tag supervision for our e-stop in the program, and we have actually two FB supervisions in different FBs. In that case, building program. By the way, I don't know if you know that, so every time I tell them something new, when you select the PLC and just press the F7 button, you can actually search for FBs. FB numbers, names, whatever. So in that case, I want to see the filling program, or filling program FB, where I've actually configured supervisions. And then I can jump to the FB right away. And I can see in my interface that, for example, for the door open, I have configured 3 supervisions. To actually see the configuration of the supervisions, I have down here a tab which is called supervisions. When I click in it, I see the 3 different supervisions in here. So one interlock for door open is power. We do have one for conveyor and 1 for valve fill valve. So this is for this FB. And we can actually, and yes, we do have also an alarm text for those. So those are 3 interlocks in that case. And to go back and that one for the tag supervision, of course, I can also go in there and see the supervision configuration right away. But this is an operand supervision here. To see the difference in runtime, I already have the runtime running. So what I do now, I change to my buttoning screen, and I actually want to produce an error. Am I still logged in? No. I'm going to log in very fast. Switch back to the button screen. And then I turn on the machine. I need to fill the tank because no low level reached. So I'm just going to wait until the machine is running. Oh man, I didn't activate alarm logging. In your case, alarm logging is activated. I just didn't need it before, so I just deactivated it. Let's just do the data logging too. Stop. My VMware is just very slow because I'm working with 4 gigabyte RAM. I know, I'm not fulfilling the requirements, I know. But the reason actually is, so because when I run the 4 gig, I can run more VMwares. That's actually the reason why. But it's still working. Okay. All right. Signing in again. Okay. And now I just hit the e-stop. Everything is powered off. I switch to my diagnose screen. By the way, this one here is the diagnose screen. And I see I do have a safety interlock and, oh, the interlock? Okay, interesting. Where is that? From the same, okay, yeah. So my operand message for the e-stop is listed in here, so I see e-stop is triggered. Okay. But yeah, it tells me e-stop is triggered. I want to show one slide before I go on, and it actually is to make the one thing here, which is this slide here. So the actual philosophy behind using Prodiac and behind using the Prodiac controls actually is not the case like we do in the demo project, to place all the controls in the same screen, because that just doesn't make sense. So the actual philosophy behind Prodiac is you have, in that example here, you have screen 1, screen 2, screen 3. In screen 1, it's actually your overview screen of the machine, And the diag overview control kind of like works like the group display in PCS7. So it actually highlights you that, okay, there is a failure. So you just see, okay, there's a failure coming up, something is wrong in the machine. Same thing for the graph overview, okay? You place that maybe on top of the screen or somewhere on the screen, but it's just additional information that you see an error is coming up like right away. So the next thing you would do is you would use the button which you can access or display in the control itself in order to jump to the alarm view control, which is in another screen, in your actual diagnose screen. If the alarm does still not tell you exactly what the problem is, the next thing you can do is jump into screen 3, which actually includes the PLC code viewer. So you get a detailed view. In that case, it's a graph, a 7 graph, but you see in which step the fault appeared. Okay, and the next step would then be, for example, jumping into the engineering in the TIA code in the function block itself. Okay. So the use case is actually a different one than in my demo project, where we actually just place all the controls in one screen. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear before showing you everything. So the next step would be to see more about this operand failure to include the controls. But what I want you to do first, to get a little bit more familiar with the configuration of such a tag supervision, is actually the hands-on I included in the slides, which is this here. So we actually just create a supervision for from the safety DB as an interlock, and I also put in which condition here to find the FB3 in the demo project itself. Like I said, you can use the shortcut, select the PLC itself, press F7, and just search for FB3. And then you find your safety FB drain tag here. Just double click on it and you jump into the FB itself. And the operand supervision or tag supervision which you should include is this one here. Filling, that's the input you want to use, and just add the new supervision. Okay. Important is after you've done this, and it's also written on it, load the controller. So download the PLC, few PLCs in advance in order to get the configuration in the PLC. Okay.
So then you read it how to search on the PLC.
Yep. Selecting PLC and click F7. F7.
Thực ra thì ra được ra cái sách kể
bình thường là như vậy thôi, nhưng mà mình có cái giúp này.
And after this, including the supervision, you go on to the HMI configuration. Condition 1 starting this. It's you can also use another. No, in that case, it would just make sense to use this one because that's actually in the PLC program. What you see here, that's the only logic is there that we, of course, start and Chloe, and if one of them is not true, the drain tank is not set. And when you have a look, at the start supervision here, you actually do the exact same thing for filling. So you interlock those two. And start is the only one which is triggered. The drain and filling is not triggered. Then the drain tank will not be set, and the other way around.
When you change in the FE3, FE4 also will change. FE4.
And you have a look what's in FE4. Safety provider. I think it should be. Where you call pilot, that it should be in there. And but in that case, in the FP supervision instance, because it's supervision in the FP itself. In that instance. I just didn't include the filling so far. So if I just the supervision. course, one thing is, okay, so when you configure this supervision, we go on with visualization in runtime for the diet stuff. 1, recording? Okay. So regarding what we do in the HMI, same for comfort, advanced, and professional. Like I said, at least version 14, we do have the controls pro dive overview, graph overview, PLC code viewer, and with, I think it was version 15 or something, we do have also the so-called criteria analysis, which I'm gonna, which we will actually see when we include the PLC code viewer. Okay. Then when we switch to the to each control, ProDive overview control actually looks like this. You can do different configurations like colors, or like if you want to see different toolbars, like this button here, which is actually linking to your alarm view, and you can use, and that's a new event in the control properties itself, which says alarm view button click, where you can actually do the screen change to the screen where your alarm control is located. Like in the one slide I showed you before, how the actual use case is for using ProDive. Okay. S7 graph overview. Here you basically see in which step you are right now. You can switch the step, or you can jump to the next step. You see which operating mode, if it's auto mode or manual mode. You can also switch to the alarm view control and to the screen in which the alarm view control is located in, and you can also switch or show the S7 graph in your PLC code viewer. What you can also see in the control is on the right upper corner, the initial step, if that one is active, or the if it actually is a parallel step which is active right now. So just more information. You also have new events in here because of the buttons you have here. So one of them is again alarm view button click, and the other one is PLC code view button click. So actually we define here in which screen the PLC code viewer is located in, and we do a screen change. Okay. PLC code viewer itself, it looks like this. So it shows the complete block, function block, or a static graph block as well. And you actually, it's also in component runtime advanced as WinCC professional. And you can use the system function for using this button right here, which is also in here. Activate PLC code view. So you load the actual FE in your PLC code viewer. Okay. What is yeah, okay. This is actually the advanced, I think. Yeah, enable PLC code viewer call, which is actually done by activate PLC code view, and you give the screen name that the PLC code view is located in, which is in our case always the same screen. Yes, for PLC code viewer, you can also activate different buttons in the toolbar. For example, just not seeing one line, actually seeing the complete function block is one of them, or zoom in, zoom out, or in the case what we have done in the demo project, actually see criteria analysis. Criteria analysis, and I don't know if I have a slide for that. No, I don't. Criteria analysis actually is when there is a number of pre-requirements, and for example, one operand is false, and other operands will get into failure after shows you which was the first faulty operand in the order. That's the criterion analysis. Okay. So let's place the controls on the screen. When we switch back, we go into our diagnostic screen, which is located in our HMI Runtime Professional under as well main content diagnostic. So that's the screen you can see in here. And we're going to start with placing the podiac over here. So we're just going to place podiac over here. You can also see that we do have, the button actually looks a little bit different now. This is the alarm cue button. So the only thing what we configure in this control basically is under general, we select the tag from our podiac, supervisions, and the podiac, actually the podiac state structure. So you choose the default supervision DB, and in there the state structure, and just include it. And that's actually everything we need to do for this control. Of course, we can change colors and everything, but that's not important right now. So we restart the graphics runtime. And we see in our screen that I actually do have still the eStop active in my case, which is an operand supervision, and I see right away operand is active, which is an error. Okay. Next thing. What control do we have as well? We do have also the PLC code here, which we're just going to place here on the side. Important for the PLC code viewer is the PLC code viewer does not show the information for operand supervisions because it just doesn't make sense in that case. If one tag is false, that's information enough. In the case of an interlock, we need to know which other precondition is not correct. So we insert the PLC code viewer, and we actually don't have to configure anything here besides design stuff or maybe toolbar buttons, or if we, in the case of graph display, when the header of the step or the step description is very long, you can also activate the two-line display now. That's not necessary right now. The only thing we need to do is, in order, because we start with selecting the alarm in our alarm control, and we want to jump that to the PLC code viewer, is that we program for our button to jump into the PLC code viewer the event, which is using a system function here, which is under keyboard operation for screen objects. And there you find actually two. One of them is show PLC code view from alarm, which is basically that what we want to do. But the other one is show block in TIA code from alarm. That's actually what we want to use when jumping into the engineering itself. But in this case, we just use show PLC code view from alarm. And now we have to fill it with the parameters. It actually uses already the objects on the screen. Alarm screen name is the same screen you're in, because the control is placed in the same screen. Alarm view name is actually the name of our alarm control, which is in that case alarm view 1, so that's correct. And our basic screen name is also this one. We can also use it in a screen window, but in that case it's a basic screen, so we don't need to name any screen window. Name of the PLC code view, so this control here is also PLC code view underline 1, which is also the correct name in here. The only thing we need to do is we need to insert the error tag, which I have already pre-configured, which are actually in our HMI tags already, under the folder again ProGuide. You find here arrow tags. These are internal tags, and I call it arrow load viewer. So I'm going to choose this tag here. Runtime, HMI tags, ProGuide, arrow tag. And that's it. Save. Restart the graphics runtime. Go to our eStop is still active. Go in here. For selecting the alarm, we need to choose this symbol right here. And then we can select the interlock. Load block in PLC code viewer. And there we go. And what we can also see here is, down here underneath the PLC code viewer, it also shows you the criteria analysis, which says or tells you what was the first faulty operand in this home network. So in this case here, we already see it's highlighted in red, so this is our faulty operand here. But we also see that this is the first one in the row here. And when we switch to, because we just see one line of the FB right now, and we want to see the whole main safety FB, we just click on this symbol right here, and we see the complete function block. We're actually seeing, this is criteria analysis view with this button here. So this exclamation mark here shows the first faulty operand. If we switch back to see which operands are all fault or actually release the start, we see the list here. And if we don't want to see the criteria analysis, we can just deactivate it. And that's it. That's how ProGuide actually basically works. alarm handling and the most, yeah, the biggest difference is that the alarm handling is basically done in the PLC. So you don't have to do any creating alarm messages in WinCC. And you get the actual timestamp from the PLC right away. Of course, if you want to see the alarms in the PLC itself, you can also switch to diagnostics here in the engineering if you don't want to start the runtime for that. Go to alarm display. Go online on the PLC, which you can also do with PLC in advance, by the way. Select your device, which is your 1518, and then you also see all the supervision alarms in here. That's it. So of course you have now the chance to play around with the software, just try different things. If you have questions, let me know. But this basically is how Kodai works. And I would actually do a short break just after that. Or right now, if you want to.
Yes.
Because I'm just going to get cold. And then the last topic for today, CVAR. I see everybody is very excited. Yeah, because the operand. So operand is not because it's you cannot operand supervisions. Well, no. In this case, that's it. Oh, maybe it's more. Okay. Okay.
Lá xá. Làm tới tầm này thôi. Cái gì? Em nhìn một bộ cái gì? Sang Việt Nam tiền yên nhiên đấy. Yên tâm, nó tiền yên nhiên cũ không mấy không mấy đâu.
report is there, it says the state is okay. So that's kind of confusing. That's weird. Maybe it's because of the check, I'm sorry. So you don't know. This compliments. To have a look at them. Okay, nice. Last topic for today, and then we're actually done. CMARC. So what actually is CMARC? I'm just going to start with the topics which actually are used in CMARC. So we access the library management itself, or the library itself in TIA code, the project library. And we also use types and master copies and common data for generating the screens for HMI. I don't think I need to talk about more regarding types and master copies because we've already mentioned it today. So I'm actually going to jump in the functionality of CMARC right away. So what CMARC does is, CMARC actually works on the basis or on the structure of the PLC project. So if we have a look at this example, we do have a FB, motor FB, which is used or called 3 times in the PLC program. So we do have a motor 1 instance, a motor 2 instance, and a motor 3 instance. What the goal in this use case is that we create on our HMI screen for each motor instance 1 faceplate on the screen. Therefore, we use so-called CMARC rules, and in the case you want to place objects on the screen, like those 3 faceplates, you use so-called screen rules. should I start? Oh no. Okay. You actually define in your CWARC role your FB, which you can see is a type from the library, from the project library, which is in our case the FB motor. And you use the screen object you want to place on the screen, which is the faceplate type in our project library. You can also select a master copy of a screen, which is then of course located in the master copies, not under types, which is your HMI screen template. The result should be, in the case that we have the 3 motor instances, that we create 3 faceplates on our chosen HMI screen. In order to generate faceplates, which are then automatically linked to our DB tags of the instance DBs, we can use our CWARC properties, which include then predefined tags in order to link them to object name or process value or even script parameters. And I made one example here. So we do have in our FB a color input, which is blue, and we access this parameter with block.parameter, so block, which is our FB, and we access the parameter, in that case called color, and we put it on our text field property. And then we see in our faceplate that the string blue, which we have here in our FB, is linked in our faceplate to the text field itself. Okay. Same for process value and for object name. We can do the exact same thing. Okay. Of course, I will show it before we do the answer, and therefore I'm just going to start the recording again. In our demo project, I just closed everything again to start from the beginning. We do have objects in our types of the project library, also in our master copies for CWARC. Therefore, I created a folder, CWARC, in each of those topics. We're going to start with the types. So in my types, I have a signal tag, which is an FB, and I have a tag CWARC, which is a faceplate. To get the understanding of what I did in the PLC program, I'm going to open up my program blocks in the PLC. And I also find a folder CWARC in here. When I open up the folder CWARC, I can see my single tag type or instance, which is used in the project itself. Basically, it's actually the single tag type I just used in the project here. This one is then, when I open up my FB tags, is called 3 times in my FB tags. So I have a single tag 1, I have a single tag 2, and I have a single tag 3 in here. So my tag is called 3 times, including the DB's single tag 1 up to single tag 3. This is about the structure in my PLC program. So my goal is now to create for each single tag a faceplate on my HMI screen. When I switch back to my library, I see my faceplate tag underlined CWARC. I'm just going to open the type or edit the type because I'm going to make some changes to it anyway. And I see it's my tag object again. And I also see that there are already some of the properties linked to my interface of the faceplate. I can also see down here, I do have a tab which is called plugins. If I open up the plugin itself, and of course I need to select the screen here, and I see here CWork properties, CWork animations, CWork events. I just want to work with the properties right now. And I see already there are two tag expressions existing. What I see here on the left side is a property interface, which is actually the faceplate interface. And my properties, which I linked to the interface already, which are also listed in here. So this is the exact same thing. I already put something in here for wealth and value. Where do those tags come from? Therefore, I switch back to my single tag DB. I'm going to open this up. And I see I have a structure or elements in here which are color, value, and wealth. And I already referred to value and wealth in my faceplate. So what I do in my faceplate is, I'm going to open it up again, I actually link the properties to the DB instances already. Block.db.symbolic name actually gets or puts the name of the block I configure in my screen rule, what we will do later, which is in this case then single tag 1, single tag 2, single tag 3, and which is actually working as the tag prefix here, and I add the name of my element here. And this is actually not underlined, it's dot value. For my tag color, it is still missing. So therefore, I also need to put in block dot, and now I can choose DB, and I want to use the symbolic name, and add my string, which is in that case dot color. So the last element I saw in DB. And I want CWork to generate those tag linking for every single tag DB. One thing is still missing. You have to give it a name. So in that case, I just want to name it like the DB is called. So block DB. I'm just going to open it up because then you see the IntelliSense as well. Dot symbolic name. And I can add now, I don't know, faceplate to it, just a random string that I know this is single tag 1 faceplate, single tag 2 faceplate, single tag 3 faceplate. You want to underline. But I don't have to add the string in the end. I can also do just block DB symbolic name. Okay. So this is how the linking is done in order to do a automatic generation. I release the type. And I'm done with my faceplate I will use on my HMI screen. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to create a HMI screen I want to use as a template for my CWork generation. So I'm just going to create in my HMI runtime go to screens and add a new screen. And I'm just going to call this screen template. Okay. Because what I don't want CWARP to do is just placing the faceplates randomly on the screen. I actually want to define a position where CWARP should place the different faceplates. How do I do that? I have to create a layout. So I'm just going to use a rectangle, place it on the screen, and again, I see down here in my property window also a plugins tab. And I open this one, and I see here in the properties that I can actually use this object as a layout field. And that's what I want to do. And then I see it has like an orange frame. It has a very weird name in it. So I actually want to have a specific layout field name. So I'm just going to write in tank, yeah, just tank. So this is now tank 1 of 1. I'm just going to create another rectangle and leave a little space. And use this also as a layout field and use the same existing layout name tank here. So now we have 2 of 2, and I just do the exact same thing for the third one. And now I have 3, and then I want to place them or arrange them. So that's what my screen looks like. Okay, so my faceplates are going to be placed underneath each other. And I want to add one more thing, which is actually a trend control, where I want to see some trends displayed in there. So I just place another rectangle in here, and I want to just place the trend control in here. The size, by the way, doesn't matter of the objects. I want to use this as well for a layout field, but this time it's another layout, and I call it trend. Just 1 of 1. Because I want to have just one trend. And that's all I'm going to do. And to actually use this template screen as a template screen for CWARP, I'm gonna, and screens can just be master copies. I go in my folder underneath the master copies, which is called CWARP, and I do already have a folder prepared for screens. And that's just where I place my template screen, so I drag and drop it over to screens. And my master copy is created. And then I can just delete my template because I don't need it in the screens anymore. Okay. So I have a template screen now. I do have a template or type of a faceplate, and I can actually start to generate a CWARP screen. To CWARP itself, to the general configurations, you find it also under common data. And here you see on the bottom CWARP. So I open this, and I can see now all the rules I can use in CWARP. And we will start with the screen rule. So I'm just going to open up the screen rule. And I want to create a new screen rule. So I just add a new one. You can give it a name. Doesn't matter. So the most important things you need to choose are highlighted in red. And my program block I want to use in order to create my face plates is the, and let's choose receiver. And do I have to? No, I need to choose it from the PLC. Because otherwise, of course, it will just create one faceplate because the type is not called 3 times in the types itself. So I need to choose it from my PLC program under CWARC, and I select my single tank. Okay? Single tank faceplate here. Green object, of course, is my faceplate. So I can there choose my faceplate from the types, from the project library, which is tank CWARC. And for my master copy of a screen, it's the one I have just created before. Under screens is my template. Layout field is, I see both of them here, tank and trend. Oh, and I want to use tank as my layout field. That's actually everything I want to do so far. And save. And usually when the first generation of CWARC is done, it always tells you you have to compile your PLC project. So I'm going to compile my PLC project first. And after I compile it, I can actually start to generate my CWARC screen. How do I do that? I click on my Runtime Professional. No, I need to click on the actual HMI_RT_2, so not the complete PC station, my actual Runtime Professional. And I see in the context menu here, generate the visualization. And I say generate with station selection. So I already selected my 1518F before. So it's already selected. But I can of course also use, if I use more PLCs in the project, I can also do the generation over another PLC. And I say generate. No errors. That's actually the first time. Interesting. And now I want to see what happened. So I open up my HMI runtime, go to screens, because I would expect a screen, because I created a screen here, that makes sense. And I see in here a new screen which actually has a little symbol in the front, which actually says SIV. And I open the screen, and here we go, I have 3 faceplates in here. Every time when something is generated by CWARC, it has a blue frame around it. If I now select a faceplate and go into my properties and into the interface, I can already see, hey, it already created single tank 1 value, single tank 1 color, and below, already linked to my properties, and for my single tank 2, it's 2, and for single tank 3, it's 3. Okay? So this is regarding faceplates. And that actually is, I think, the first hands-on. No, actually more than that. Yeah. So those are the two first hands-on. The trending, we will do that later on. I would just start with creating those three base plates. That was regarding the layout. So how we actually create the layout fields. So it's step by step also written in the slides. And then we should receive the three faceplates. I would say like 10-15 minutes or something. And then we have just two more topics to cover. Alarms and what was the other one? I think, yeah, the trend. generate a reaction. I just used something that is separated before. And then project, so like this is about this is not in there. You can try this. The next one. I can do this first too.
Cái lúc mà bạn template thay đổi đến gạch dưới thì chỉ làm một chấm thì xong rồi ra để tạo.
Chưa.
Cái mà chấm value
Cái sao nó lại mất nhỉ?
Nó lại như này nhé. Bình thường là mình tạo fanpage đúng không? Thì hiện việc mình split mục tiêu của CMS là một ngày một sao link lên một đối tượng chung hay là một đối tượng đăng trên graphic. Nó hai phần nhé. Một là chương trình QC đúng không? Hai là chương trình giao diện. Thì nó sẽ tạo ra một cái luật để kết nối giữa cái phần QC đấy với cả cái đối tượng màn hình này. Ví dụ vì sau tương lai em làm cho là trên một màn hình em sẽ thiết kế được 10 cái bước hoặc 10 băng tải, đúng không? Tương tự như thế. Thì khi mà em tạo ra luật đấy cho thì khi mà em generate thì nó sẽ tạo ra cho em một cái luật, mà luật này là nó có nhiều luật, nó là luật nó là tag rule, có nghĩa là luật về cái đối tác. Tức là khi mà em chạy ra ấy, thì tự cái tag của em ấy, nó sẽ từ cái một đối tượng này nó sẽ phải tag rule nữa. Thì từ cái tag rule này, cái luật về tag này thì dẫn lên được cái tag có trên cái tag POC đấy. Và cái luật thứ hai là luật về gọi là screen rule, có nghĩa là luật về màn hình. Có nghĩa là khi mà em tạo luật đấy xong ấy, thì em tạo một màn hình có giao diện và có tên của cái screen đấy, tên là screen A này, là màn hình giao diện bơm này. Và trên màn hình giao diện bơm này nó có 10 cái thanh. Thì cái screen rule nó cho phép em một phát là em generate ra 10 cái thanh đấy.
Tức là so với việc là mình phải copy xong rồi gắn hai cái tag thì cái này generate ra là cái tag
đúng rồi, thì tag sẽ nhảy vào cái tag.
Em không phải là thay ví dụ
và cái tag sẽ nhảy vào cái màn hình. Đó là cái tag rule ấy là làm cho cái việc là cái thay vì cái việc mà em dùng tay một
em thay
để
tag
em đến tag, thì cái tag rule ấy nó sẽ đẩy dữ liệu từ cái tag từ chương trình POC từ FA đẩy xuống cái template này luôn. Đấy, xong là cái screen rule ấy thì nó sẽ đẩy cái template đấy vào cái mặt một màn hình giao diện. Đấy luôn. Thì ở đây là lúc mà bạn ấy hướng dẫn em làm thì sẽ có cái bước gọi là tag rule và screen rule luôn. Đấy, thì hai cái đấy tạm thời anh hôm nay là em cứ hiểu đấy đã, rồi anh sẽ gửi cái clip của bạn ấy ghi cộng với cái việc là sắp tới nếu mà em cần thêm ấy, thì anh sẽ làm một cái workshop chuyên về cái CBAT này, một buổi mà anh em ngồi chia sẻ lại xem một cách làm CBAT như thế nào. Tại vì cái CBAT này nó rất hay ở cái chỗ là mình nếu mà em lập trình vào cấu trúc, tức là các đối tượng như bơm này, băng tải này, va này, em đều lập trình dạng dưới dạng custom block, thì cái việc mà em thiết kế màn hình ấy, là thứ nó rất là nhanh. Đấy. Tất nhiên là để mà làm được ra cấu trúc đấy thì em sẽ mất cần thời gian, nhưng mà cái thời gian thay vì cái việc mà em cứ đi lặp lại thì em chỉ cần làm một lần thôi, và lần sau thì em sẽ tự triển khai được. Thì cái này thực ra ngay cả một anh làm freelance mà anh cũng không phải là làm có thể trơn tru ngay được, bởi vì là cái này nó là một cái topic phức tạp. Đấy, nó dành cho dự án khá lớn, nhưng mà nó cũng là cái rất là hiệu quả. Và đặc biệt cái này là mình có thể tìm cái này coi được. Cái đấy là cái mà mình lưu ý. Ngay cả cái product nhé, thì license trên POC mình cũng có. License trên nó có hai license như mà em thấy, có một license là license product viewer ở trên các màn hình đúng không? Và cái license thứ hai là product ở trên POC, cái supervisor object. Một license là cho 250 supervisor object, thì cái license cho product cho trên POC thì mình không có, nhưng cái đấy rất rẻ, cái đấy có khoảng 2 triệu mấy. Nhưng em tưởng tượng là một cái chương trình POC của em ấy, mà em ngay lập tức em rơi hết ra được cái đối tượng đưa ra thì cái 2 triệu không đi giờ thay cho cái việc mà trong chương trình của mình rất chuyên nghiệp. Nhưng em thấy rằng mà đặc biệt cái tính năng mà view được cái chương trình đấy, khi mà em bấm vào cái chương trình đấy thì đối tượng mình làm mình tự mình cũng khắc phục được cái vấn đề lỗi của mình được luôn. Tức là khi mình tạo ra đối tượng giám sát đúng không, khi mình vào vừa đấy là bạn có làm phần copy cho bọn em xem đúng không, tức là bấm vào phát cái nhảy vào copy thì mình thấy luôn chương trình đấy lỗi chỗ nào, nó tại sao lỗi và nó đã chip cho cái bit nào. Thì cái đấy là cái mà mình có thể sử dụng. Đúng rồi, công nhân này lúc đấy họ làm được cái đấy, mình làm được cái đấy rồi đấy, thì công nhân này họ sẽ dễ, họ kiểm tra hơn, kỹ sư một số họ dễ kiểm tra hơn.
Tức là mọi thứ chạy trên chuỗi này nhé, nếu mà có cái lỗi gì đó
But we need to have whatever that we need to have the program that shows the creation is called so that actually shows the single page and the single page is called text. That's why it contains basically everything. And the place for the track routing or the track control, the way you use this empty, this empty is called the main only, just once. That's why we just get one track control.
chứ còn nếu mà chỉ để mà tạo ra cái gọi là cái hiển thị cái text text chỉ là tính năng thôi đó còn có thêm cái configure với lại cái mục tiêu của project và cái hay nhất của nó nhìn được configure ở trên màn hình đây luôn để cho cái sư chủ của ý nhưng đó là
Of each track, in each track control, we actually use the single thing.
không CVAT đấy của anh người đi nghe của anh nghe nhiều cái thứ nhiều nhưng mà có một cái mà của CVAT ấy cái có nhất của CVAT là chính là cái này cái mình điền cái thông tin tại sao nó lại là ở chỗ nào mà nó đang dùng nó b fb chấm rồi có hàm trên nét luôn đấy. Đúng rồi đấy. Tại sao mà đặt là blog.db.simulate value cái này mới là cái khó. Đánh code đấy, đây là một dạng CVAT đây nó có một cái menu ở khác để mới có lại kiếm lại được anh gửi cho cả nhóm là cái gọi là cái CVAT system menu tức là nó sẽ giải thích từng hàm này luôn. Tại sao lại điền là blog.db.simulate nếu có thể em mà chứ ở đây là mình gọi là đang hiểu cách sử dụng thôi tức là chỉ bảo là đánh cái này vào thì đánh cái này là nhưng mà tại sao là đánh cái này bây giờ tôi đổi thành block fp thì sao có được không thế thì cái này nó sẽ giải thích được cái vấn đề này mà mình phải hiểu được cái đoạn này thì mình mới biết được cái cách cái lập luận
cái đợt mà cho nên 4.1 có start rồi
đúng rồi
tài liệu chưa thấy
hôm đấy em đi không không chi biết đâu có một cái gọi là CVAT programming manager thôi lần trước này
có là Hiếu ra ngoài Hiếu ra đây mà
đúng rồi Hiếu chưa giải quyết được cái này hey Jasmine before I download from internet on PDF file is for a CVAT programming manager or system manager if we explain all the function code of CVAT I think I will looking back it again but if you have here can you share with everyone because
I think I put the link in the slide.
yeah. Tại mình phải hiểu được lập luận là cái tại vì cái nó là rất là function đó chính là cái function đó của mình rồi DB chính là data block bây giờ mình đang gán vào cái data block tất cả dữ liệu của truyền vào CVAT thì nó phải là từ function block này nó đưa xuống DB xong từ DB nó đẩy sang HMI này đấy thì nhưng mà cái này nó không thể là một cái giá trị tĩnh đây là một cái giá trị động tức là tùy thuộc vào cái giá trị mà mình gán nó từ CVAT vào thì nó sẽ tự chạy ra ngồi ngồi đọc lại nó mất thời gian đấy. Nếu mà chia sẻ với anh em mỗi người và ngồi đọc mấy nữa thì mấy hôm nay thì chả bao giờ mua license đâu. Mấy nữa trong dự án kiểu gì cũng có thể đòi mua license. Thì trong dự án mình nghĩ sao? Triển khai mình học thì cứ
Getting start.
getting started. Yeah. Cái này là chỉ là
I don't think it's that one.
yeah. Now again, it's sitting back in your surrounding layer.
Yeah, I think it's,
And then you I cannot remember what it is. Yeah, that's it.
just the middle?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one, yeah. 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 Square rule, leg rule, it have a lot of action.
To be honest, I've never.
It will explain why we
Yeah.
of the thing is. Anh em chỉ có đọc hay là chỉ hai trang ít. This is very detailed.
Yeah, it's just like fun.
Cái này là chưa thành đọc nhưng mà
I'm just gonna. I just didn't put it in the slides.
yeah.
But if I do it now, it's not gonna be. Oh, it's interesting.
Obviously, because this matter is
It's very big.
yeah, they don't have to understand.
Well, I guess you don't have to read it like in once. You can just look in there.
I guess looking for the person. Cái này dùng để tra cứu là gì?
Okay, I just want to cover the last two things. I guess you will get all the project done, so you can also work with it later on. But I just want to talk about the two missing topics, which are trending and alarming. So for example, if you open up the alarms and trends in the master copies, you can also see one alarm which I have prepared and actually two trend views. So how does it work with the trending? For the trend view, of course, I also have to create a trend and use it as a template. So I'm just going to drop in this trend very quick to show what configuration I did here. So I just inserted a trend control, and what I did for CBAR, again, I switched into my plugins tab, and I used the same scripting as well, so very basic. I have to give it a name, and I just put a static string in front, which is trend underline, and then I call it what the symbolic name of my function block is, and this is generating my name. The most important thing here is the data source process value, which actually gives me the data source which I want to see in the trend. In that case, I don't use the single tag DB. I actually use my FB tanks. So my FB tanks includes one one output, which is just called trend value in this case, and my FB tanks, and that's important to know, is that my FB tanks is called in my main OB, and that's just called one time in here. So my FB tanks is called one time, and I want to create one trend control, which includes the trend value of my FB tanks. In order to link that again, I use my block name, block symbolic name, which is in that case then my FB underline tanks, and I add the element, the tag element, which is in my FB tanks DB, which is called trend value. That's all I wanted to do. When I created a template as my trend view, I again, like the template view, I can just drag the object and place it in my master copies. I've already placed it in here, so I don't need to place it in there again. I just delete this one here, and we use the existing one here in the master copies. So I switch back to my screen modes because I want to place another object on the screen. I create a new screen mode. But this time I don't want to use my singleton because I want to have just one trend control, which includes the trend value of my FB tanks. So in this case, I choose my FB tanks. And for my screen object, I want to use the trend view, which is located in my master copies under CWARP. Trends. F of T trend view. Okay. Master copy is still the same for my screen, so still the same as the template screen. But in this case, I don't want to use the layout field tank. I use trend. That's all I want to do, and I can start generating the screen. So I'm just going to go back to WinCC Runtime Professional, right click, generating the visualization, file. And I would expect now that in my already existed generated screen, I also see my trend control in here. And when I go to the properties, I should now see that my data source for my trend is my FB tanks dot trend value, which is written in here. Okay. The last topic for today, because we're running out of time, is alarms. I just want to show it how we can generate automatically alarms. In my case, and in the demo project, I have already an analog alarm placed in my master copies here. And I switch to my HMI alarms editor, open it up, go to my analog alarms, and I'm just going to place my template in here to see what the configuration looks like. So I did create an alarm in here, analog alarm. I can see there is no tag configured because it's my template I want to use. And I again have my tab here, plugins. So for my alarm, again, I have to define a name for my alarm. Again, you find here my symbolic name of my FB. In that case, I want to generate 3 alarms for one alarm for single tank 1, one alarm for single tank 2, and one alarm for single tank 3. alarm text is also configured. I just say a static string, which is in this case filling level too low. Actually, it's too low. And I'm gonna, I want to see in my alarm text which tank the filling level is too low. So that's why I add my symbolic name of the FB to it. And of course the trigger tag. So my trigger tag actually is the value of my single tank, which I just added here. Again, same syntax. When I'm done with my alarm, I just drag and drop my alarm in the master copies again under alarm, and I just want to replace it. Okay, maybe not, then I'm going to delete the other one. And now I have and I want to use this template of the alarm for my alarm rules, because I also do have an editor for alarm rules. And there I start over and say my first alarm rule. Now again, I want to have 3 alarms. Oh no, I didn't start the recording. I want to generate 3 alarms for each single tank. So again, I choose here my single tank. And master copy of alarm is the generated alarm in the master copies. On an analog alarm on the line 1. I save. And I generate. And now the result should be 3 alarms in my HMI alarms editor. So I go in my HMI alarms editor, analog alarms because it's an analog alarm, and I see here 3 alarms which are connected, each of them to single tank dot value, and it also has the alarm text filling level too low 4, so the static string, and it adds the single tank 1, single tank 2, single tank 3. So the symbolic name of my FB here. Same for name, single tank 1, symbolic name of the FB, underline my static string, which I set in the script, alarm underline tank. That's it. That's how CBART works. Of course, there's more complicated stuff because you can also work with conditions, or you can also work and create alarm classes. Whatever you can drop in the master copies, you can also generate in your CBART. We have some other editors as well. So we see here the screen rules, what we already used. Tag rules is actually not generating new tags. It kind of like stores the generated tags in folders. Text list rules, you create text lists. Copy rules is basically just copying from your library into the project. So it's just a copy. And you do have a generation overview, which actually shows you what kind of objects were generated in which screen, on which PLC device. That's kind of like a diagnostic when something went wrong. Yeah, and that's for text list, and alarm as well. Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically it.
Sure.
And all the steps are also, you find them also in the slides as well. So feel free if you want to use the last 3 minutes. You can also stay here and program some other stuff or try out different things. But I would be done for the 2 days now. Love information. I know. I know, I know. I'm done for today. I fulfilled my job. Yes, I'm done with talking.
It's my turn.
It's your turn, yes. Please.
Anh em thực hành đã hiểu hết chưa? Thầy chưa thấy cái WinCC mới cái email mà anh sẽ gửi cho mọi người. Thì cái đấy anh em cùng tìm hiểu thôi, chứ là anh chưa nắm rõ về đây đâu. Nhưng mà hiểu concept nó là như thế, mà mình thử triển khai như thế. Xong anh em là có dự án nào thì cứ thử thế, nó chẳng mất gì cả. Mà mình đầu tư thêm thời gian, một chút thời gian cho nó, biết đâu nó là một cái giải pháp cho tiết kiệm thời gian rất nhiều, nhưng mà đầu tư thời gian để mà làm được nó thì mình cũng không ít đâu. Thế thì anh em phải ngồi chia sẻ với nhau rồi trao đổi với nhau, chứ một người hai người làm chắc chắn được chuyên nghiệp. Đấy, nếu đội cement thì cũng sẽ hỗ trợ.
Đây trong Sài Gòn có bên Long nữa.
Còn thành là Sivat rồi nữa.
Sivat
Sivat
thì chưa, nhưng mà cái API cái openness cái tính năng openness nó tổng hợp từ đồng tàu trong QC từ đồng tàu không như Sivat đồng tàu thì nó cứ openness.
Cái openness thì là nó kết hợp, nó sẽ phù hợp nếu mà kết hợp là openness và Sivat. Thì cái đấy thì sau đi openness thì nó cũng là một cái chủ đề
Video, yes, and
Videos.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. Ok, cảm ơn anh em. Đấy là 2 ngày là cũng đấy.
Anh em có đăng ký là thì đi
Được vào đồng chí nào khác à? Để anh em mình đừng chịu lo đâu, mình nhóm WinCC thì anh em cứ làm xong vướng đâu thiếu tài liệu gì hoặc là thắc mắc gì thì cứ đẩy lên đấy này rất là mừng chừng rồi mà có mấy cậu em này rồi có hết rồi luôn, có nhóm Zalo WinCC Hà Nội luôn có. Đấy, mình sau mình phải nhớ Việt Nam chứ. Được anh.